It's upsetting me and my homegirl because we feel like, well, damn, if you can't go to Bella Noche's, where the hell could you go?
But it's not like this all the time.
No, it's not. Actually, mother bring guns in their car all the time. You think we got time for somebody getting shot the place we go and have a good time at? No.
Now to an I-Team exclusive. There are new questions about the police investigation into the dating app death of a young woman, Lauren Smith Fields, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Investigative reporter Sarah Wallace delves into that mystery.
On the morning of December 12, 2021, a man called 911 from a quiet apartment in Bridgeport, Connecticut. His voice sounded calm, but what he reported would soon become one of the most debated death investigations in recent years. Inside the apartment was 23-year-old Lauren Smith Fields. She was unresponsive. The man on the phone told dispatchers they had spent the night together after meeting on a dating app. Hours earlier, they had been drinking tequila, watching a movie, laughing, and getting to know each other. Now she was dead. But what happened between those two moments is where the mystery begins. Because when Lauren's toxicology report later came back, it showed something shocking in her system. Fentanyl, promethazine, hydroxyzine, alcohol. A combination powerful enough to slow breathing and cause death. Yet the man who had been with her that night was never charged with anything. An investigation that followed would spark outrage, lawsuits, and one question that still lingers today. How did a young woman go from meeting someone for a casual date to dying hours later in her own apartment? Before we go deeper into this story, I need to ask you something quickly. If you enjoy true crime stories that dig into the details and ask the questions others don't, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss future cases here on Shadow Crime. It really helps the channel grow and keeps these stories reaching more people. Now let's talk about Lauren. Lauren Smith Fields was only 23 years old. Friends describe her as lively, social, and someone who loved being around people. She was a student at Norwalk Community College and had a strong presence on social media, where she often shared photos of her life, fashion, and moments with friends. Like many people her age, Lauren sometimes used dating apps. One of them was Bumble, where women typically make the first move in starting conversations. It was through this app that she connected with a man named Matthew LaFontaine. They had reportedly been chatting for a few days before deciding to meet in person. According to reports, this wasn't some long-term relationship or someone she had known for months. It was simply a date. Two people meeting for the first time. And that first meeting happened at Lauren's apartment. The night began in a way that many dates probably do. Matthew arrived with a bottle of tequila. The two reportedly talked, drank, and ate food together. At some point, they started watching a movie. According to the account Matthew later gave police, everything seemed normal. But during the night, Lauren reportedly became sick and vomited. Despite that, the two continued drinking. Eventually, they both fell asleep in the apartment. The next part of the story is where things start to feel unsettling. Matthew later told police that he woke up early the next morning, around 6:30 a.m. When he tried to wake Lauren, she wasn't responding. That's when he called 911. Paramedics arrived shortly after, but Lauren Smith Fields was already gone. And what investigators would later find inside that apartment would raise more questions and answers. When police officers arrived at the apartment that morning, they were stepping into what should have been treated as a serious and sensitive scene. A young woman had just died unexpectedly, and the only other person in the room was a man who had met her for the first time just hours earlier. Inside the apartment, investigators began noting what they saw. There was a tequila bottle Matthew had brought. There were drinking glasses. On the bed where Lauren had been found, there were sheets that reportedly had stains on them. There were also items that many people later questioned, including a pill and a used condom. But what would later shock Lauren's family was not just what was found in the apartment. It was what happened after. According to reports, Matthew spoke with police and gave his version of the night. He explained that they had been drinking, watching a movie, and spending time together before going to sleep. He told them Lauren had gotten sick during the night, but later laid down and seemed fine. After speaking with him, police did not treat him as a suspect. In fact, according to Lauren's family, investigators allegedly described him as a nice guy and suggested there was nothing suspicious about what happened. Now pause for a moment and think about that. A 23-year-old woman dies in her apartment after meeting someone for the first time. The only other person present is the man she met through a dating app. And yet, very early on, investigators appear to believe his explanation. Not long after, Lauren's body was sent for an autopsy. This is where another major piece of the story begins. When toxicology results were completed, medical examiners discovered multiple substances in Lauren's system. The report later stated that she had fentanyl, promethazine, hydroxyzine, and alcohol in her body. For those who may not be familiar with these substances, fentanyl is an extremely powerful synthetic opioid. Even small amounts can slow breathing dramatically. Promethazine is commonly used for nausea or allergies, but can also cause sedation. Hydroxyzine is another medication that can cause drowsiness. When combined with alcohol, the effects can become extremely dangerous. Medical officials eventually ruled Lauren's death an accidental overdose caused by acute intoxication from this mixture. But here's where the story becomes even more complicated. The ruling explained what caused her death. It did not explain how those substances got into her system. And that detail quickly became the center of the entire case. Lauren's family strongly pushed back against the conclusion. They insisted that Lauren was not someone known for using drugs. To them, the explanation didn't make sense. Think about this from their perspective for a second. Your daughter goes on a date with someone she met online. Hours later, she's dead. Toxicology reveals powerful substances in her system, but no one can clearly explain when or how she consumed them. Naturally, the questions started piling up. Was something added to her drink without her knowledge? Did she unknowingly ingest something that had fentanyl in it? Or was there something investigators had missed during those first critical hours of the investigation? The more people looked into the timeline of that night, the more attention the case started receiving online. And soon, the story of Lauren Smith Fields was no longer just a local tragedy in Bridgeport. It was becoming a national conversation.
Now to an I-Team exclusive. There are new questions about the police investigation into the dating app death of a young woman, Lauren Smith Fields, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Investigative reporter Sarah Wallace delves into that mystery.
They wanted us to forget about our daughter, their sister, our loved one. They thought they was gonna just throw her away like she was
garbage.
Amid this family's anguish are emotions of outrage and disgust at how the Bridgeport Police Department has investigated the mysterious death of 23-year-old Lauren Smith Fields.
It was careless. It was no concern. There was no care for the family about how we felt, our grief, our pain, none of that.
The I-Team obtained this police report of the response to a 911 call from Lauren's apartment on the morning of December 12th from a white male identified as Matthew LaFountain. The investigator notes he was trembling and visibly shaken. LaFountain said they met on the dating site Bumble, began drinking shots of tequila, and Lauren became ill. That later they played some games, ate some food, and started to watch a movie. He says he carried her to her bedroom and laid her in her bed. He then laid down next to her and fell asleep. He woke up again at approximately 0630 hours, and she was laying on her right side. Blood was coming out of her right nostril onto the bed, and she was not breathing.
The whole day goes by. No police reach out to the family at all.
Her close-knit family says they went to the apartment the next day after frantically calling and texting Lauren and were referred to a Detective Cronin.
They didn't even contact us. They didn't let us know anything. It's crazy. And I'm asking what's going on. He said she met some guy on Bumble. And I'm asking about the guy. He was like, oh, he sounds like a really nice guy. He sounds like a really good guy. And he was like, I'll call you back, and just hung up in my face.
They say the detective promised to come by the apartment.
never showed up.
The family says the relationship with police devolved from there. No contact from December 13th until December 29th. They returned to the apartment to clear out Lauren's belongings and claim a new detective came by to say he'd taken over the case from Detective Cronin.
The detective said he effed up, he messed up, he effed Cronin, he messed up, he didn't know what he was doing, he messed up the case.
The family says they provided evidence they'd collected to crime scene investigators who arrived for the first time that day. included a bloody sheet and a pill.
And 2 cups of like drinks or whatever next to a bottle. They didn't take none of that. We seen a condom, we seen lube, other stuff in there, and they didn't take none of this.
Sources close to the investigation tell the I-Team the Matthew LaFountain pictured in this social media photo, now removed, was the man at Lauren's apartment. A neighbor at his listed address in Milford confirmed LaFountain's identity, but we were unable to reach the 37-year-old who has not been accused of any wrongdoing. LaFountain's same image appeared under the name Matthew Thomas, now also taken down.
Anyone that genuinely cared and they were there, the last person there, and they know that nothing bad happened, you would at least even reach out to the family yourself. Like, listen, I know I'm sorry for your loss of your daughter or your sister.
The family's last contact with police was on January 4th at headquarters with their attorney.
What I believe is that the police failed to collect and preserve that environment from the first day.
The attorney has now filed a notice of claim to sue Bridgeport for negligence, claiming key evidence was not initially submitted to the state lab.
I feel like because he's a white guy and she's a black girl, it's just almost like they just thrown it under the rug.
That night she was silenced, so now we are her voice. But we're here and we're fighting for her.
The Bridgeport Police Department did not respond to repeated messages we left about the case, but in previous statements, they've said the investigation is open and active, and that detectives are waiting for a final report from the medical examiner on the cause and manner of death. Sarah Wallace, News 4 New York.
Also, we just received a statement from the dating site Bumble that Sarah mentioned. A spokesperson says, "We are deeply saddened by news of Lauren Smith Field's death and have reached out directly to the family to offer support. We have been in contact with law enforcement, but they have not yet requested any information."
As the story started spreading beyond Bridgeport, something else came to light that made people even more uncomfortable with how everything was handled. Lauren's family said they were never officially told by police that she had died. Let that sink in for a second. According to them, they didn't get a call from investigators. They didn't get a knock on the door. Instead, they found out through Lauren's landlord, who had left a note asking them to contact him. Imagine discovering something like that about someone you love, not from authorities, but from a third party. That alone was enough to make the family start questioning everything. And it didn't stop there. As they began asking more questions, they felt like they were being shut out. They claimed communication with police was limited and unclear. Important details were either missing or not explained properly. And the more they pushed, the more it felt like no one was taking their concerns seriously. Now, put yourself in their position again. Your daughter dies under unusual circumstances. You're trying to understand what happened. But the people responsible for investigating the case don't seem to be giving you answers. That's when frustration turns into suspicion. The family began speaking publicly, and soon social media picked up the story. People started using the hashtag demanding justice for Lauren, questioning why the case didn't seem to be getting the same level of attention or urgency as others. Many began comparing it to other high-profile cases and asking whether race played a role in how this investigation was handled. At the same time, more details about the initial investigation began to surface, and they raised even more concerns. Reports suggested that key evidence in the apartment was not immediately processed. Some items that could have been important were either not tested right away or were handled much later than expected. There were also claims that the apartment itself was not thoroughly examined until days after her death. Now think about how crucial the first few hours of any investigation are. That's when evidence is fresh. That's when details are clear. That's when timelines are easiest to establish. So when people heard that there may have been delays, it only added fuel to the fire. Because once that window passes, things can change, evidence can be lost, and questions can become harder to answer. As pressure continued to build, city officials were forced to respond. Eventually, 2 detectives involved in the case were placed on administrative leave while an internal review was launched. But even with that, many people felt it wasn't enough, because by that point, the damage had already been done. The investigation had already taken its course. The initial conclusions had already been made, and the opportunity to fully understand what happened in those critical hours felt like it might have slipped away. And this is where the case takes another turn. Because instead of just waiting for answers, Lauren's family decided to take action themselves.
This morning, the family of Lauren Smith Fields is looking for answers.
I just could not believe that my baby sister was gone. Somebody who I love, somebody who I protected, somebody who I've been around my whole entire life. Like I literally held her when she was born.
According to the Bridgeport, Connecticut police report, on December 12th, authorities found a young adult black female lying on her back that did not appear to be breathing. A man who says he met Lauren on a dating app called the police. That man, who we are not identifying, says he had only known her for 3 days and visited her apartment for the first time the night before, when he claimed she got sick. The morning of December 12th, that man noticed Smithfield's nose was bleeding and she was not breathing. That's when he called 911. The family says the man is the last known person to see Lauren alive. Police say he's not a suspect or a person of interest and that they do not suspect foul play.
We want all the people of Bridgeport to be treated fairly and equally under the law. That didn't happen here. And everyone listening to the story needs to know that Lauren Smith Fields wasn't given the treatment that she should have been given.
Now, Smithfield's family have taken the initial steps to sue the city of Bridgeport and the police department. They allege that the Bridgeport Police Department failed to implement the proper crime scene investigation team to collect physical evidence, and that the city has failed to intervene. Today, on what would have been Lauren's 24th birthday, the family has planned a march and a celebration of life.
We're going to march. We're going to chant her name. We're going to wish her happy birthday. We're going to let balloons go.
They also have a powerful message that they want to share with the world.
Because we don't want this it's not just about Lauren. It's about every girl that could potentially go through something like this. We don't ever want this to happen to anybody. I don't want nobody to feel this pain.
The family says that they believe that race has played a role in the investigation, but the police department says the investigation is ongoing and that they're awaiting a cause of death and toxicology report.
Lauren's family believed that what happened during the investigation could not simply be ignored. In their eyes, too many mistakes have been made and too many questions were left unanswered. So they decided to file a lawsuit against the city of Bridgeport and members of the police department. The lawsuit accused the authorities of failing to properly investigate Lauren's death. Her family argued that officers had been negligent, that key evidence had not been handled correctly, and that the investigation had been rushed to a conclusion before every possibility was explored. They also raised another concern that sparked intense debate across the country. The family believed racial bias may have played a role in how the case was handled. Lauren was a young black woman, and many people online began asking whether the investigation would have been different if the circumstances involved someone else. These conversations spread quickly across social media. Thousands of people began discussing the case, examining the timeline, and questioning whether justice had truly been served. Meanwhile, the man who had spent the night with Lauren continued to maintain that he had nothing to do with her death. He told investigators that everything that happened that night was exactly as he described. According to him, they drank together, spent time together, and eventually fell asleep. When he woke up and realized she was unresponsive, he called for help. And legally speaking, no evidence ever surfaced that directly connected him to a crime. But that's where the tension in this case remains. Because while the official ruling labeled Lauren's death as an accidental overdose, it never fully answered the most troubling question of all. How did those substances enter her system in the first place? Was it something she knowingly consumed? Was it something she took without realizing what it contained? Or could there have been something that investigators simply never uncovered? Even years later, those questions continue to linger. Court proceedings related to the family's lawsuit moved forward for some time, but eventually parts of the case were dismissed by a federal judge. That decision closed one legal path the family had hoped would bring more answers. Still, the emotional weight of the case remains heavy, because when people look back at the story of Lauren Smith Fields, they don't just see a toxicology report or a legal decision. They see a young woman who went on what should have been a simple date and never came home. They see a family still searching for clarity. And they see a timeline filled with moments where many believe things could have been handled differently. So now I want to hear from you. Do you believe the official explanation that Lauren's death was simply an accidental overdose? Or do you think there are still pieces of the story that were never fully uncovered? If you were the investigator looking at this case, what would be the first question you would want answered? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if stories like this matter to you, if you believe these cases deserve attention and discussion, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss another investigation here on Shadow Crime.